Hey you! Yes, you! Are you a greedy person? You look like one. Would you consider yourself a penny pincher? Do you potentially love gold by any chance? I love gold. I love when those around me perish and I take their goods. If you're anything like me, you love being rich. And what's the best way to get rich in this game of Commander? Treasure, of course.
Hey, get out of here. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what that person was trying to do. Are you guys okay? All right. Great thing. Treasure commanders are some of the most popular strategies around, and I can see why. Who doesn't love a one-time use mana source? Why do you think Lotus Petal is so expensive? Except treasures can be played and made over and over and over again, leading to a lot of different ways to build with it. Pardon that interruption, but welcome to Architects, where we build around different archetypes in Commander and showcase decks that I think are fun and different ways to play them. If you guys are enjoying this content, please feel free to like and subscribe and check out my Patreon in the description below, where you can get access to an extra video every single week. And depending on the tier, you can recommend a deck that I can review for you. Hope to see you guys there. Treasure strategies are simple and effective. Turns out, when you make a lot of mana in a mana-hungry format, you tend to win the game a lot. Because of that, a lot of the treasure makers we're looking for are quite expensive cards on their own. Because of this, the decks in today's video are a little bit on the pricier side of things. But don't fret, you can always use the treasure tokens they make to buy you the cards you're missing. Just kidding, sadly. But now, without further ado, let's get into these lists. Anhelo the Painter is quite a doozy. We've covered him before on the channel, but since then I've really turned him into a treasure commander. Turns out when you're able to copy abilities that give you a ton of treasures, you're able to kind of storm off a little bit with all the extra mana that he makes. And then in the late game, you can turn all that extra mana into a huge spell that you can then double once again. In this iteration of the deck, we still have plenty of ways to activate our casualty with at least power 2 creatures or ways to make power 2 creatures. You're going to have plenty of sources to use in this deck that are going to allow you to get these casualty triggers. You have so many ways of drawing cards through your deck that it's really easy to find these sources if you don't already have them in your opening hand or haven't drawn into them already. Because we have so many ways of drawing cards, these are the best things that you want to be doubling. You want to have a creature out on the battlefield, and then you want to double something like a Cathartic Reunion, Inspired Tinkering, or double one of your mini tutors in the deck. If you're able to double some of your tutors, you essentially win the game on the spot. When you do double your tutors, you're looking to get a Brass's Bounty and a Torment of Hailfire, or Exsanguinate, or Crackle of Power. Any of those big X mana spells. Now the reason why is because Brass's Bounty is going to get doubled and you're going to make a ton of treasure tokens off of a single spell. Now you're already going to have a lot of treasures because of all the generators that we have, but this makes you the most amount of treasures. Once you do that, you're looking for ways to copy your big mana payoffs. At this point, you could easily have anywhere worth of 15 to 20 mana in treasures alone. Then you just copy one of these spells and pretty much win the game on the spot. I've never really seen anyone survive a Torment of Hailfire for 25x times 2. It's just not going to happen. And for some reason, if they do, you have Crackle of Power, which can deal 80 straight to their face. On the other side of things, we also have Dual Caster Twin Flame combos. Just a lot of ways to win the game real quick with a ton of mana in our pocket. For our ramp package, we have quite a few mana rocks to help us get there early, but then we also have a lot of treasure generators that allow us to ramp into the late game just as well. It's a spell slinger strategy, so we have plenty of ways to draw and plenty of ways to remove things. So we have 16 pieces of really great removal. Curse of the Swine in this deck is really great because it's another X spell that you have and you can dump a lot of mana into, except it acts as almost a pseudo board wipe, and because you can target whatever you're wiping, it's almost like a one-sided board wipe. It's super duper powerful and allows you to get rid of basically every threat on the board if for whatever reason you stall out in the mid game. Mizzium Mortars is a lot easier to activate now because you have Overload and you have a ton of treasures. Blasphemous Act is really great. We also have removal in Shiny Impetus. This is not only going to basically get rid of your biggest threat, but also passively generate you more treasures. It really is just a great removal package. As long as you keep an opening hand of like 2 lands and a mana rock, or 3 lands on its own, you're going to be in a good spot. Anhelo in this deck acts as both kind of a value and function commander. You don't really need Anhelo until you need to double these spells, in which case you can use him as a function commander. But if your opening hand doesn't have any payoffs and it only has a lot of draw, you might want to use him as a value commander so you can dig through your deck that much faster. Overall, I kind of see this deck as like an evil Kai Car deck where you're looking to dig through your deck as fast as possible and make a ton of mana, except you're in black. So you're a little bit more mean because you're sacrificing your creatures for value and you're making your opponents hate you. This deck is super fun and I highly recommend you check it out. Our next deck takes on the true meaning of letting your money do the talking. Vihaan Goldwaker is probably the most aggro treasure deck you'll ever see on the market. We just buy totally into the treasure making ability and we swing these puppies out. Turning each of your treasures into a 3/3 creature is absolutely insane. It turns things like Smothering Tithe, Monologue Tax, and Smuggler Shares into creature generators. But not only creature generators, but they're also still treasures in addition to being a creature. Imagine this, your opponent swings at you with 3/3 treasures only to sacrifice them and hit you with a huge spell or hit you with a board wipe just to make a ton more treasures and turn them back into creatures. This deck does exactly that. It is not fair. It is not nice. You're basically if Jeff Bezos could turn all of his dollar bills into minions and those minions went to your house and punched you in the face. We don't have a ton of draw as we're pretty much all gas in this deck. Most of your deck is making treasures and only making treasures and swinging out as fast as possible. For ramp, again, we don't have a lot. We make so many treasures that have vigilance. So we can still use those treasures as best as we can. Our goal with this deck is just to make as many treasures as possible, multiply them if possible, make them all in our pre-combat main phase, and then immediately turn them into creatures, give them haste and vigilance, and use them again in our post-combat main phase for removal or to keep up mana for any type of value. This deck runs extra combats. The deck runs Torment of Hailfire is a big mana payoff, Akroma's Will, Shared Animosity, just some great cards overall that are going to help you get over the hump, which is winning a game of aggro commander. We have a couple active ways of making treasures, but we also have a lot of passive ways of making treasure. Probably the best card in this deck is the Smothering Tithe. Smothering Tithe is already broken on its own, but imagine each of those treasures that you're getting every single turn on autopilot also becomes a creature on your next turn. This is going to be a huge target on your back, but that's okay because all of our other treasure token generators are going to go a little bit unnoticed if you are using Smothering Tithe. Make treasure, swing out, use the mana to make more treasure. This deck is aggressive and fun. Turns out treasures into creatures is kind of busted. Vihaan needs a lot of protection as he is a true commander in every sense of the word. You can always make treasure, but he is the only way you have of making them useful. So be cautious and make sure he's safe at all times. Vihaan is a great addition to your collection if you want to play this deck. While you want to go fast, you need to make sure you go smooth as well. That's how you can take over games with this commander. Now, the last deck I have for you goes all in on grinding out victories and making sure opponents pay their fair share. Lotho, Corrupt Sheriff, is really the guy you don't want to see on your Thursday afternoons. You're just trying to chill, you're going around and you get stopped by this guy and he says you gotta pay up. That's what happens when you cast your second spell. He'll take a little bit of damage because you slap him in the face, but he still gets a treasure token. This deck basically wants to use the passive token generator as a way to pay into extort costs that you have, ways to play in some of the combos that you have, the stacks pieces you have, and then at the end of the game, of course, we have a few of those big mana spells that we're talking about. You have plenty of ways to draw cards that are both temporary and continuous. Many of them have to do with sacrificing the treasures that you're making. We have a couple ways of protecting ourselves, of course. A lot of our ramp is in these mirrors, as they are creatures, and we are still a little bit aristocratic, so we want our mana rocks to be these creatures as they just give us a lot of value. If somebody wants to board wipe, they're going to be taking some damage because of this. Our removal package is pretty light, but we do have quite a bit of board wipes. Again, we're trying to grind out into the late game to either cast one of these big spells or make sure they pay their taxes until they're gone. We actually have a couple stacks pieces. We're really trying to stop our friends from playing the game. And then, of course, our biggest investment is to taxes and grind. We have 4 ways of using extort in our deck. We have a lot of aristocrats types effects, a lot of creatures coming in tap, a couple ways to recur some things, a combo with exquisite blood and veto, and just a lot of passive value that's going to make our opponents really not enjoy their time here. Lotho is a true penny pincher. He's a great option for those who like to grind out games and play EDH nice and slow and be a little bit of a bully. Some might say you're here for a long time, not a good time, but you embrace that and you enjoy your gameplay no matter what. This Lotho list is a true value build. Play Lotho early and often so you can start collecting those taxes. Then make sure you pump that into building resources for yourself to ensure you're not being messed with while everyone else fights around you. Then when the table is all out of money to give, you finish them off with a small army you've assembled or some of those big mana payoffs. And the rest is history. Treasure commanders are 1. Expensive, 2. Greedy, and 3. Super cool. There's no wonder this archetype is played so often when it's obvious that every player is also these 3 things. Just make sure you don't upset those around you when they become envious of your vast wealth. And make sure to spend it while you still can. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below what your favorite treasure commander is and how you like to build them. I'd like to take this time to now thank my patrons. Thank you so much to George Vazanelis, Philly123, Chris Smith, Son of Zygote, Ruby Storm, Raphael DDL, Haeo, Justin, Peachy Star, Zedok, Aaron Fisher, and Abrac. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you for your continued support. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, check it out in the description below. And thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys all next time.